Welcome to another episode of Creatives Corner. My name is James Dale, and my next guest is Dr. Melissa Sue John. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning, James. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for taking my invitation, and we are in for a treat. Dr. Melissa Sue John is a social psychologist and assistant professor at University of St. Joseph's, the owner of Lawrence Simone Publishing House, and an author of several children's books in the Olivia Lauren book series. Dr. John earned um, her master's and doctoral degree from the University of Connecticut in Stores and her bachelor's degree from Hunter College, City University of New York. Dr. John is passionate about her writing, teaching, training, scholarship, and mentorship. Dr. John teaches in introduction to psychology, developmental psychology, social psychology, and physiology of gender, psychology of gender. Her research investigates broadly the effects of being categorized as a person of color, female, or immigrant on attitudes of like stereotyping, behavior, like discrimination. Specifically, Dr. John has examined an implicit and explicit attitude towards immigrants, understanding bias towards Blacks and Latinos, and is involved in many lab replication projects. Dr. John has a plethora of scholarly publications and awards. She enjoys traveling and spending quality time with her husband, two daughters, four sisters, five nieces, and five nephews. That is a very eclectic background, and you are very accomplished. And it's good to know that you know how to compartmentalize your life. And that is one of the things that is great. And that's a good message for people out here who want to be professionals and want to have a family. You got to separate the two. You can't just be all work. You can't be all play. You got to have a balance. How you doing this morning?
I am doing well. I am blessed to be alive, to keep kicking, to keep pursuing those milestones. My daughter just celebrated her graduation from UConn as well. Go Huskies. So it's been a great time this year.
It's great. So you keeping UConn in the family. So it's going to be a generational thing. So her kids is going to go to
We'll
UConn.
see.
Okay,
We'll
okay,
see.
that's good. Um, I'm going to go into the questions. Would you consider yourself an advocate for women's rights, equality for minorities or the LBGT community?
Absolutely. My work centers on identity, diversity, inclusion. We've often been programmed and primed to see stereotypes as judging people when we should be more inclusive and understanding different people, even if we don't agree with their way of lifestyle because our culture or religion or what have you told us something else. But we should always be open to learning about others and treating each other with human dignity.
That's true. That's true. And one thing, my mother was a caterer growing up, and the one thing I noticed with people from different walks of life that will come into the cafeteria or the restaurant that she works in is food brings people together. So that's one thing that we in society should look towards is to try to break bread literally with each other so we can understand each other's backgrounds, understand each other's religions and personalities, so we can empathize with other people and not be so quick to judge someone based on their color, their skin, their language, or lack of not speaking your language, or believing in your belief system. Um, what made you become a social psychologist, and what exactly is a social psychologist?
So a social psychologist studies typical adult behavior. So it could be, why do people drink? Why do people not adhere to their medicine? Why do people discriminate? Why do people form in groups? Why do people discriminate against out groups? I've always been interested in human behavior, but it stems mostly from the fact that I'm an immigrant. So coming from Jamaica, moving to the United States, I lived in New York, and I noticed a plethora of different backgrounds, but I noticed some commonalities that even though New York is very diverse, it was very segregated, meaning
Mhm.
you literally see different groups of people coming on and off stops. Right? So you'd have Chinatown, you'd have Little
Mhm.
Italy, you'd have Jewish communities in Brooklyn. And it just made me really interested in understanding why humans segregate when we should be all inclusive.
Should be all inclusive, but I think that is a society thing. Governments all over the world tend to put people, set people aside based on economy, based on gender, and I think that carries over when people immigrate to any countries, not just here in the States. Is Canada, is the UK. You will always see different societies. People tend to group together for comfort.
Yeah.
From familiarity.
Familiarity.
Yeah,
No,
right,
I totally get it. But the thing is that race is a man-made concept. There's no such thing as race. So culture exists, but race is
right,
man-made. So if we
right.
see each other as humans and we look towards seeing that we're all having things in common, then you realize that these segregations aren't really necessary.
If we
Why
all
can't we enjoy each other's food and art and dance?
That's why I like carnivals and those kind of things and potato sack races because people get together and they notice, when you're silly, you drop all of those stereotypes and you just laugh and you
Yeah.
just enjoy somebody who it may be different from who you are, and you drop down your guard. Did you become a psychologist? Did becoming a psychologist prompt you to start your own publishing company, or was it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So my first job out of grad school was at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts, and I was doing a research project with some of my colleagues where we were teaching preschoolers engineering, and we
Mm-hmm.
were using literature to do so. So as literature has this cycle, the story arc, which is very similar to science design, to engineering design. There's a problem, there's a solution, and then there's a resolution. So it's very cyclical, it's very iterative. And I noticed that the students we were serving were from Head Start. They were immigrants, children of color, children of immigrants. And the books we were serving them had either talking characters, so animals, cars, trucks, and white characters mainly. So I noticed the disparity that the books that we were using didn't reflect the children's culture, identities,
Mm-hmm.
backgrounds. And I told my daughters, Alyssa Simone and Olivia Lauren, who the company's named after, about my grievance. And the little one, who was around 7 or 8 at the time, Olivia Lauren, said, Mommy, stop complaining about the problem and be the solution.
Need a solution. I like her already. Okay.
Yes, Olivia's always been really smart, really funny, really just in your face with the facts still to this day. So I took on the charge and we said, let's write our own books. So we didn't start out as a publishing company. We started out as just a family wanting to write books where every child could see themselves. It didn't matter if they had braces, freckles, if they had prosthetic legs, wheelchair. We wanted every kid to see themselves. So it wasn't a race issue for us. It was just an inclusion issue. Like, why can't every kid be seen in a story? And we wrote our Olivia Lauren series together as a family. We based a lot of the characters from our family. And we said, how can we get other families involved? So we got kids to illustrate our books, right?
Okay.
So we got some family members to illustrate our books. And once we did that and we started getting some success and some traction, other parents reached out and said, I want to write a book with my kid. And I said, yeah, I can consult with you. And they're like, no, we want you to do it for us. And that's how the publishing house was
Oh,
born.
that's how it came. So you didn't try submitting your manuscript to other publishing houses? You
No, I
just
never went the traditional route.
Okay.
Didn't even try.
Okay. So
I
it just
wanted ownership of our story,
okay.
our legacy.
That's good. So you didn't go to the pitfalls of being told, no, you have to change this, and this person's eye color have to be blue, and it can't be green.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing that you just brought up. So a lot of people don't know that when you go the traditional route, they take your manuscript, it's copywritten in your name, but you have no control over the illustrations. They can choose whichever illustrator they want. So you could be like, oh, this is a futuristic story. And then the illustrations look like 1960s civil rights era.
Mhm.
So it's nice to have your own ownership. And honestly, authors get pennies on a dollar. They don't make a
Yes.
lot of money after
Right.
they get their first big check. They don't make a ton of money.
Right, because you got to recoup all of the money that the publishing houses put into your books, so you pretty much chasing your own tail, so to speak.
Exactly.
Um, does your books in the Olivia Lauren book series tackle social issues in society today?
Well, we target K to 5, so our books aren't heavy, and we also are very STEM focused. I'm very into academics, so our books talk about things like transportation, travel. Um, Imani published a book called The Golden Life of Sally Sunflower, which basically teaches the life cycle of a plant, right? So how does it go from a germinating seed to an actual plant? What happens when it dies? The only book that I would say is heavy on like advocacy is Happyvism by Ryan Parker and Justice Lopez. That talks about like Black and brown joy. So, right, just understanding that you exist in the world, people might not like you and you don't know why, but just live and enjoy your life anyway.
Mm.
And then environmental activism is our book called Layla and Henry Wingo that basically covers oil pollution and protecting our oceans. So our topics aren't heavy on like, oh, you should believe this or you shouldn't believe this. Like I avoid controversial topics. I would never, and again, it's like it's for kids. So I
Mhm.
don't do the abortion, I don't do sexuality, I don't do those hard topics. I'm just like, listen, you need to know your ABC, you need to know how to count, and you need to
Foundation.
understand science. Yeah, so it's very educational, it's very fun. We have another author called Elijah, Madison and Elijah series. So some of those books are about Elijah's birthday party. What's the gift that he gets? And then in the end, it teaches you how to make a fire truck with using like a milk carton. So it's really about getting kids to love reading because many kids, especially in our community, say, I don't like reading. And it's
Mhm.
probably because they've never seen or related to a character that they read.
Right.
So the
They
whole
don't see
goal is
themselves.
just to implicitly show kids you could be an author, you could be a firefighter, you could be a doctor, right? So it's just introducing kids to things that they probably wouldn't normally see in their everyday life.
That's good. Did you always want to be a writer?
I think everybody wants to be an author. The research actually says 80% of Americans think they have a book inside of them. Everybody has a story to tell. So whether it's saying, I want to write for children or I want to write my biography, everybody wants to write a story. Some people like poetry. Some people aren't the greatest writers, but they still have encountered a life of struggle. Like we all have our struggles, regardless of our privileges. And we want to share those stories with others. That's the
Yeah.
human condition.
That is. Oh, so growing up in Jamaica, you always wrote stories and things of that nature. Do you have a story that you used to like recite in your head or sing along?
No, unfortunately, no. Like I read a lot. I read a lot of romantic books. I read, or literature syllabus, but I
Mm.
didn't write as a story. I was not a poet like you and James.
Mhm.
But I loved reading.
Okay, that's
My
good.
sister had a different experience from me. She went to St. Jago High and she learned about all the different Jamaican poets and she would recite the poems and she'd come home and say them to me. And that's how I was actually exposed to a lot of Caribbean poetry because at my school we didn't have that access.
Okay, so out of all of the authors that's that are writers in your publishing company that you represent, what percentage of them are from the Caribbean, the diaspora?
99%.
99%. Okay.
Yeah, Rosamund White, she has a book called Home, Where is Home? And it's such a great book because it talks about parents still having this connection to their island home while also being immigrants to this country and feeling home here. And their kids are growing up here. So this idea of having multiple homes. But the reason I like the story is because as you're skipping through it, you're learning geography, right? So not a lot of people nowadays don't know anything about geography. They don't know the capitals of countries, they don't know the states, they don't know the counties. So I'm trying to really bring back some of the things that I learned in school into our literature.
So is that book a series or is it just a one-off book?
It is a series, but it's only one out right now.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So that's going to tackle where the main character is from and where they're going to go and different places they visit, things of that nature.
absolutely. So this one, they're in the United States and they're talking about going home for vacation. So the next one will talk about actually being there.
Okay. So, what is the criteria if an author wants to be represented by your publishing house?
So we want a fully completed manuscript. Of course, we'll help with editing and storyboarding, but we want a fully completed manuscript. We want representative characters. So a lot of times books say they're diverse because they have background characters that are diverse, but we want the forefront characters to be diverse. We want it to have a strong story, non-stereotypical, because there are books out there that do cover diversity, but it's like, oh, this Black kid can't swim or this kid can play basketball, right? They're very stereotypical. It has to have positive imagery, positive representations, and you have to have not been published before. We're looking to really help people who are aspiring authors, never before published. And if you're willing to work with a child, whether it's your child or one of our kid illustrators, because our thing is community, right? Our whole thing is about inclusion. So we want when our illustrators grow up and they apply for college and they're like, oh, I want to get a degree in graphic arts. And I've already published over a dozen books, right? So we're
Right,
trying
right.
to build their portfolio. We're really, so when you asked about activism, I would say that is how we do our advocacy, by really enhancing our community.
Okay, that's great. So can you walk me through? You already mentioned one of the authors that you represent. Could you walk me through a number of them so you can tell my audience what kind of books that you have, name them, and where people can find these books?
Absolutely. So all our books are found on www.laurensimonePubs.com. So please support our authors. So again, we promote young people. So we have Imani Ariana. She has 3 books with us. It's the first one was Disco Balls of the Universe that talks about the solar system. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I
Then the
bought that
Golden
one.
Life of The Golden Life of Sally Sunflower talks about plant life. And then Virtual Liftoff is an amazing one because like I love to travel, but do you know how a plane stays in the air, right? So what are the forces that keeps it up, that pushes it forward, that helps it to land? So it talks about weight and thrust and all this good stuff. So that's Imani. Then we have Madison and Elijah, who wrote their books with Sabrina Bishop, their mom, and they have Madison Explores Paints. So the thing about this family is that both of the kids have been diagnosed with autism,
Mhm.
but the mother has always been interested in diversity. She lived in Dubai, she lived in Jamaica, she lives in Florida, and she wants to show kids that just because you've been labeled with a disability doesn't mean that you can't dream. So
Mhm.
literally, Madison is a special needs gymnast. She's a
Mhm.
swimmer. She's a model. She just to put out pictures with Bold and Grit. It's a gymnastics clothing company.
Mhm.
So she's a model, author, painter, gymnast, swimmer. So she's amazing. So they have 3 books out: Madison Explores Paint, Elijah and His Invisible Friend, and Elijah and Elijah's Birthday Party. Then who do we have next? Oh, Amari. Amari is one of our kids. Amari Bingham. He lives in Florida. He's like a straight A student, plays the piano. He was valedictorian of his graduation this year, and he wrote a book called Pro Skater, which is basically a story that tells kids you'll fail, you'll make mistakes, but try again, right? So it's his
Mhm.
first time going roller skating. He falls, but he gets up and he keeps going. Then Yvette Phillips, she's a Jamaican as well. She lives in New York. She has a book called The Tale of Princess Alicia. And as you know, most Disney stories usually have a white princess. So here's a
Mhm.
story about a Black princess. But instead of a man saving her, she's the one doing the saving. So that's
Okay.
a fun story.
Okay.
There's a chapter book. It's our only chapter book in our company. And there's an activity book to go along with it. Then Joseph Iningo, he's based in New Haven. He has a company where he uses puppets to teach kids things. And
Mhm.
he came out with a book called Music Note Kids because they focus on music. Then we have 2 preschool teachers. So Cheryl was a preschool teacher and she came out with a book called, where is it out here? A worm named Small, and it's the idea again of it's about diversity. Just because I'm small doesn't mean we can't be friends, doesn't mean I can't do things.
Right.
And then so that's Janice Polite, and then Cheryl's book is You Can't Catch Me, which is a book about a little boy and a bubble, a talking bubble. So as I said before, it's not heavy activism, it's really imagination and science and learning, and all the books end with like questions, reading comprehension questions, like what did you learn from the book, to really have kids go back, right? What else do I have here? Oh, Nicole Hawkins has another diverse story. It's called You Are the You in Unique. And that's a fun story about, being different as well. We have a journal called a gratitude journal for kids. And yeah, I've covered all of them. And the only ones left are the Olivia Lauren series. So that one has Olivia Lauren, A Guide to Modes of Transportation. If you go to a library and look up books on any kind of like cars or trucks or any of that stuff, it's always geared towards boys. They're always yellow, they're always blue, but like girls can be engineers, girls can drive, girls can drive a bus. So we came up with a book that showed different kids using different modes of transportation. Then there's the things we wear, and it sounds like a simple book. It sounds like, oh yeah, you wear a hat, a shirt, a pants, and a shoes. But no, other cultures wear saris and
Mhm.
hijabs, and instead of pointing and saying, what's that? You literally have a book that can teach you, right? So
Right,
again,
right.
it's that inclusion piece. Because we were so segregated, we see each other and we're like, oh, they're wearing a hat. Is that a fedora? What is that? So we're so separated. We see each other and we have no idea about each other, right? So literature is supposed to help bring us together. What's her name? Rudine Sims Bishop says that books are mirrors, windows, and doors. Books should help us see ourselves. It should reflect our own stories. That's the
Mhm.
mirror. The window should be able to allow us to see other people's worlds, and the sliding doors allows us to actually experience it. So that is the goal of our books. Oh yeah, that's the two latest books. So Favorite Things was written by Pedro Valentin. He was a professor at Capital College, and he wrote a book with his son that he wants to share with other disabled children. It's a coloring book and a storybook. And then Carol Cross's two kids wrote a book together called Dark Shade, The Determined Dragon. And this is a fun story about a Komodo dragon who believes he's a real dragon and he wants to
Uh-oh.
fly. Their mission is to help endangered species. There's so many animals that we have lost over the course of our time on Earth, whether through overfishing or overforesting. But they use 10% of their proceeds to adopt animals to help the wildlife save animals. So advocacy, right?
That's great. That's great. That's amazing. So you are a lot more than just a teacher and a professor. You are um, investing in the future of our culture. So mainly, I noticed that a lot of your authors, the people that you represent, are parents that are writing books with their kids. Um, can like somebody like myself who wrote a book, can I, come to you and say, hey, I need representation, I have an idea of this, but it's not geared towards kids, would you represent me?
Good question. So in the beginning, I would say no. I said, no, I need to market to my niche. I need to, become an expert in my field. I don't want to spread myself thin. But now that I've hired someone, I'm able to spread my wings and do another niche. So I just published a thesis for someone, and I'm currently working with another author to publish a romantic Christian novel. So absolutely, James, if you have a story in mind, send it our way. We'll read it and consult with you and get it published for you.
Okay.
But we just always tell people our focus is children, but we will help you because our goal is to help community. It's all about community building.
Okay, I noticed you earlier you mentioned that you have children who are illustrators of the office that you represent. So are they on staff, or is that somebody that you just say, hey, listen, I have this project, would you be interested into illustrating it?
Yep. So we have a full staff of 10 illustrators. So whenever I consult with a new aspiring author, I say, here are our different talents. These are some of the examples of their work. Which one would you want to work with?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And
So
and it's
they're
all
1099 contractors.
okay, so it's not pro bono, you're getting paid.
You're
Okay.
getting paid.
Okay, that's good. That's great. I wish they had something like that when I was a kid, because I used to doodle and stuff like that when I was a kid, and that's something like you said that you can put on your resume and you can draw from when you are an adult. And I use that term loosely because just because you're an adult don't mean that you can't be a professional. So I'm gonna have to take that out. when you want to, when you know what you want to do, you can refer back to that and say, hey, I have experience in this field, and this is my work, this is my body of work. So that's great. You're doing amazing work there. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience about yourself, about your publishing company, about your experience?
Well, I'd like to share with the audience about their own journey.
Mhm.
Many people will have a story and it will sit on a computer for 10 years. Some of my authors have literally said, I wrote this in 1996 and it's just coming out in 2023. Okay.
Mhm.
A lot of us are perfectionists and we do social comparison using my social psychology background. So we compare ourselves with others and we're like, oh, but it's not as good as theirs, or it's not as good as that person or that person. Some of the best authors who have 12, 13, 14, 15 books will look back at their first book and say, oh my God, I cannot believe I wrote that. You only get better with practice. So if you
Mhm.
think that one book is going to make you a best-selling author and you're going to become famous or have this huge paycheck, you're wrong. You have to continue to write. So maybe not the first book, but maybe the 10th book is the one that puts your name out there.
Mhm.
You have to read biographies. If you look at J.K. Rowling's, her story was denied several times. Harry
Mhm.
Potter, it was denied many, many times. Okay. And that's just success in general. If you look at the owner of Starbucks, he was denied by banks 7 times before he got his loan to open his coffee company in Seattle, right?
Mhm.
So you have to stop being afraid of failure. Just, fail forward. Put it out there. If it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, you try again. So that's one of the messages that I want to leave. And that's what I like, why I like working with kids, because they're not afraid to fail, where adults are just like, I don't know, and if and but, especially when it comes to technology, right? Because now I'm like, back in the days, you used to mail your manuscript, literally print it and mail it. So
Right.
now I have people who I'm like, yeah, email it to me. And they're like, I don't know how. I'm like, if you're going to survive in 2023,
You
where
better
you
get
can't
with
even
the
check out
program.
with a person anymore, right? Walmart is bringing out robots, and you go to CVS, you can't even have a person check you out. You have to check out yourself at a kiosk. You have to keep learning, and just be a child all over again.
So the children's book is doing two things, from what I understand, is helping young people get professional accreditation, right? And is also teaching adults to not take themselves so seriously, and to take off the shelves what ambitions they had when they were kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. And I like that. And on that note, I really appreciate your time and coming in and sharing your story with my audience and your authors. And again, just to reiterate, where can people find your books?
Please visit us at laurensimonepubs.com, and also follow us on social media. I really want to grow our social media. Please engage. Don't just like, comment. Let's talk. Let's get a dialogue going on. So that's at Lauren Simone Pubs, LaurenSimonepubs. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys there.
All right. Take care. Thank you.